Congressman. Thank you so much for being here. At Axios, we like to talk a lot about the one big thing, and one of the biggest questions in Washington right now is who is going to control Congress this time next year. A lot of your colleagues are skeptical that Republicans will stay in power, and I know you feel differently. So what makes you so confident that you guys will remain in power?
Well, thank you. It's great to be here on the first AM Live. This is great. No, I'm very confident we're going to hold the House. In fact, I think we'll pick up seats. And the reason is the map favors Republicans. And I was saying this a year ago before redistricting and all that went on. And I think with redistricting gives us a little bit more of an edge on the map. The seats that are up for grabs, there's very few favor Republicans. And so that's advantage one. Advantage two is candidate quality. I'm very proud of the group of candidates we recruited last cycle. When people said we couldn't hold the majority then, I think the candidate quality was one of the secrets why we held. And I think this class of recruits is even better. We've got folks who fit their district, who are very accomplished. I think, the state of Nevada, for example, we really didn't play in Nevada last cycle. Unfortunately, President Trump carried Nevada. That would have been a good opportunity for us. But we've got, for example, Carrie Buck running against Dina Titus. Their primary is actually tonight. But she's one of the best candidates we've ever had. She's a former teacher, principal of the year, married to a retired police officer. Her son's in the military. She's fantastic. She won a Democrat state Senate seat and held it in re-election. She's a great candidate for us and one of the secrets why we're going to pick up at least one seat in Nevada this time. So we've got the map, candidate quality, and then fundraising. For the first time since I've ever seen, we actually have a money advantage. Not only head-to-head NRCC versus DCCC, but RNC has a huge advantage over the DNC. And then you've got the Trump world entities, and I've read in Axios and other places that they're planning to spend upwards of $300 million on House races. So that gives us a huge advantage in getting our message out. If every metric that you have in elections, we're ahead. And, I'm just bullish that, it's going to be very close. I mean, 435 seats, less than 30 are going to determine the majority. But in those 30, we're poised to win.
One topic that's a huge issue for voters, though, is affordability. And a lot of your members have been begging to refocus on affordability, to do more. Do you feel like Republicans have done enough, and do you need to do a third reconciliation bill to address affordability measures?
Well, we've never stopped focusing on cost of living challenges people are facing out there. That was our campaign message in 2024, because frankly, the Biden administration and Democrats ran our country in the ditch. I mean, we were in dire situation. You look at record inflation, a wide open border, danger in the world. Our allies didn't trust us. Our enemies didn't fear us. It was a really tough situation, and the American people said, we're ready to change course and put President Trump back in the White House, put Congress in charge of Republicans. And we're on a rescue mission right now, and we've made a lot of great progress. But it's very rich to have the Democrats who actually broke it say that we're to blame because we hadn't completely fixed it yet. We've made great progress. You look at the policies in the Working Families Tax Cut Act, the One Big Beautiful Bill. Those policies are putting the country back on track. They are making people's lives better. They're driving up wages. We had inflation on a pretty good downward trend before this Iran conflict. We will get to the other side of that Iran conflict at some point. And but you look at crime. I mean, we've secured the border. We're reducing crime in people's neighborhoods. I mean, murder rates are at an all-time low. Crime is down almost everywhere. And people are really feeling the effects of that. So, our job this election is to remind people of where we were just 3 years ago, what policies we've put in place to make their lives better. And by the way, the Democrats, our biggest advantage this election is the Democrats have absolutely no ideas, policies that would affect affordability. Their whole strategy is blame Donald Trump, make it a Donald Trump message. But I think when we lay it out as a choice, do you want to continue down the path we're on with common sense policies, or do you want to go back to crazy? And I like the way that lines up for us.
Like you just said, though, gas prices are really high because of this war in Iran right now, and Republicans spent years hammering Democrats on high gas prices. It's something you ran on last cycle, the cycle before. If prices don't come down by November, are you worried that it'll affect your ability to keep the House?
Well, I think we just have to lay out the facts to the voters. Gas prices right now are high, and that's hurting people. They're not as high as they were under Biden when he raised gas prices on purpose because he wanted people off combustion engines on EVs. They did that on purpose to the American people, and it was worse than where we are now. What we have is a temporary situation because President Trump said we're not going to allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. By the way, everyone in the world agreed with that until Donald Trump fixed it, and now all of a sudden, because Trump did it, there's Democrats and certain folks in the media questioning whether we should have allowed the crazy Ayatollah to have nuclear weapons. It's bizarre, but I think when we lay out those facts for the American people and remind them, again, this is a choice between common sense and crazy. Remember where you were 3 years ago. Do you want to go back there, or do you want to give us a little more time for this rescue mission we're on?
Switching topics a little bit, we've seen Trump do things in recent weeks that have put House Republicans in a tough spot politically, like this weaponization fund, nominating Bill Pulte to serve as DNI. Is Trump making your job harder by continually doing these things that's affecting your ability to pass legislation and message the message you want to message for the midterms?
No, President Trump is a huge asset for us. He's very engaged, understands the cost of holding the House. The Senate is a whole nother animal because you got to have 60 votes. We've actually never had 60 Republican senators. So we've been in the minority. We've been in the majority without 60 votes. It's obviously better to have the gavels to control the hearings, but the Senate, you can sort of navigate either way. In the House, it's winner take all, as we're demonstrating now with a 2-vote majority. And so we cannot lose the House. And President Trump understands that, and he's very engaged and very helpful. I just don't think when the voters go to the voting booth in November, they're going to base their vote on who's the DNI. I'm not sure many voters even know what a DNI is or what it does. These are D.C. cocktail party issues. They're not the issues the American people care about. The American people care about, is my neighborhood safe? Do I have opportunity to get a job? What's my personal economic situation? That's what voters care about, and that's why we're going to hold the House.
I know you said Trump is very engaged on helping you guys keep the House, but he recently said he, quote, doesn't care about the midterms. So, how do you square those two?
What was the context?
He was
I was asked by a reporter a day or two after the Iran war started, how does this impact your midterm? And I said, I don't care, because it's the right thing to do. The president had to do it. I support the president. And it was, you could take me out of context. The NRCC chair doesn't care about the midterms. That's just not the reality. And President Trump cares deeply. He was asked very similarly, how does this impact? And I don't care how it impacts it, because this is a priority for the world is safer because of what President Trump has done in Iran. And so, that was the context. The context wasn't that he doesn't care what people are going through. He and I have conversations all the time about it. He cares deeply about what people are going through. And, he's a person of great empathy and warmth. I wish that more Americans could see him the way I do in the quiet times and in the private times. What's on his mind? He cares deeply about what American people are going through.
Right. And another thing that he's been focusing on is potentially going after some of your incumbents, like Representative Thomas Massie. He's made critical comments of Brian Fitzpatrick, a district that you guys need to win. Is that helpful? Is that how he should be spending his energy when it comes to this midterm election?
Well, the president doesn't need my advice on how he should spend his energy. Again, I think big picture, he understands we have to hold the House. He's committed to helping me. We meet regularly and talk about these races. He's made commitments to me about things he's going to do to help us this fall. The President Trump is an incredible partner for us. He's going to be one of the reasons we hold the House. Frankly, we wouldn't have a House majority without President Trump. So I'm not concerned at all about it.
Okay. And just to talk about the map a little bit more broadly, you mentioned redistricting earlier. It does look like Republicans are going to come out on top this cycle, but 2028, Democrats are vowing to make more changes to the map. There's a group of your colleagues, bipartisan group, that are working to end mid-cycle redistricting. Is that an effort that you would support?
Well, I think we can all agree redistricting is a little out of hand. And it all started with an attorney named Mark Elias and with our former Attorney General, Eric Holder. They launched a project, over 10 years ago now, to try to win back seats they couldn't win through the ballot. and it's called Sue Till It's Blue. That's the nickname we gave it. But they've been, for this whole decade, they've gone into states like North Carolina and have been suing in state court trying to overturn legal maps enacted by legislatures, and they've been very successful. I mean, I'm running for my 8th term, and this will, except for my first reelect, I had the same district. Ever since then, this will be the only time I've ever run in the same district twice, because every 2 years, Eric Holder is suing and winning in state court and throwing out legal maps. The irony of it is the judge 1 year will rule based on a principle, and then 2 years later they'll overturn another map and contradict the principle they used 2 years earlier. So it's been a wild west. It's a game the Democrats have been playing the entire decade. I think it's about time Republicans got in the game. And frankly, if you look at the states that are being redistricted, like Texas, Florida, North Carolina, those are the 3 fastest growing states in the country. I think it makes sense to, these districts have gotten out of whack because of people moving in. There's a good argument that this redistricting is a positive thing in those states. But overall, I mean, I don't think anybody loves what's happening, but for the Democrats to accuse us of doing something that they've been doing for a decade, makes me chuckle.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman. That's all the time that we have. Really appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Cooper leaves the Office of Personnel Management after helping build Andreessen Horowitz into one of Silicon Valley's most influential venture firms. Long focused on startups, AI, and the future of work, Cooper now oversees the federal workforce during a moment when the government is being pushed to modernize faster than ever. His perspective bridges tech disruption, institutional change, and the future of public service in America.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you to Director Cooper for being here with us to talk about tech, AI, the federal government, and the changes that we're seeing at OPM. The government is racing to adapt new technologies, but there's questions around talent, recruitment, and modernization. So let's kick off with a little bit of your background. You spent most of your career in Silicon Valley. How did you end up running the federal government's HR department?
It's a great question. My wife asked me that quite a bit. Look, at the end of the day, I think the reason why I'm here is what I learned in Silicon Valley, which is at the end of the day, we spend a lot of time talking about products and markets, as you probably know, on the tech side. But what I've learned over my 16 years now in the venture world is what really matters at the end of the day is the talent that you have, basically. We can have all kinds of theories on the market. At the end of the day, organizations are made up of people who ultimately, obviously, need objectives and incentives and mechanisms to make sure we can orient them around the things we need to do. And so this is a slightly different scale than I'm used to doing it, obviously, in the venture world. But to me, it's the same principle, whether you're in a startup company or a for-profit or you're in the government, which is the most important thing in my mind is, do you actually have the right seats, the right people in the right seats, and then do you actually have an incentive system, a set of objectives that ultimately drive the behavior you want? And that's what I hope to bring to the federal government.
And what sort of parallels have you drawn from startup world that have been sort of directly applicable to what you do at OPM now?
Yeah, one of it is that, which is I think we try to overcomplicate things in some respects, and probably
government overcomplicate
exactly
things?
The government
Never.
Government does a very good job on that. But again, I think, and people say, well, the government doesn't do what we want them to do. Well, look, to me, these things are very simple, which is the question is, what incentive structure have you set up for people? So I'll give you a very simple example, which I think is a lesson that I learned from Silicon Valley. As you know, look, I come from the world where we take absolutely crazy amounts of risk, right? And nobody should freak out. I'm not proposing that the government does that. But what I think Silicon Valley does well is we think about kind of risks, and then we balance those risks with what we think the potential upside is. And what I've discovered in government, which is no surprise to anybody who's been here, is we basically created effectively a zero-risk culture because we have a compliance culture that basically overrides everything, right? We're worried about a GAO report or an OIG report or, God forbid, somebody gets hauled in front of Congress and has to answer to a committee.
Yeah.
And so as a result, if you think about the incentives we set up, we basically set up the incentives, which is thou shalt never take risk, which also therefore means we should never actually think innovatively or creatively